Life's kind of confusing, hey? It's like 1 minute you're born and then suddenly everybody's on your case about how are you going to make money? How are you going to make a living in order to, I don't know, survive and stuff? It's like, damn, Susan. It's not like I asked to be put here on this bloody spinning rock.
Look, okay, it's not my fault.
Or something. It's like my parents were bored one day and decided, you know, maybe having a kid around would keep them busy, I guess. I don't know. You'd like to find some joy and some kind of purpose in this life, on top of actually making a decent enough living to, you know, survive and stuff. And don't worry, because struggling to find purpose in life is honestly something we all struggle with at some stage or another, and at many stages of our life. I mean, you've heard of the classic midlife crisis, but you may not have heard of the not so familiar quarter life crisis, which is something I just recently came out of and sometimes still battle with. So yeah, don't feel like you're alone. You're definitely not. This is not a new phenomena, and it definitely won't be anytime soon. And the good news for you is that you are not having your death life crisis, right? You're not on death's door, 90 years old in an old age home, you know, taking your final breath. Whoever you are, it doesn't matter, because I've got some good advice that I'd like to share with you all today. I've always been a pretty late bloomer, if I had to be honest with you. I picked some degree that I kind of thought sounded like me, I guess. You know, I had all these dreams and aspirations in the back of my mind, but I thought, you know, BA General is kind of something, and it kind of has creativity in here, and I mean, it seems kind of interesting, so fuck it, bro, why not? And so I did BA for a couple of years and ended up doing my honors in journalism. And naive as I am, or as I was,
will you be my Katie Couric?
Thought that journalism was all about flashing lights and sports cars and interviewing celebrities and being the face of the news, you know. Please have a look at the weather today. We are going to experience a cold front throughout the studio room this morning, but that will shortly be followed by some sunshine. I feel like I could have done this job, right? I got the green screen. So in a way, I technically am still a news broadcaster, just making jokes now and being a clown most of the time. But yeah, I thought the journalism life was full of glitz and glamour. Long story short, I finished my honors degree and I ended up with a pretty lucky internship at a really reputable journalism company, right, in South Africa. And, you know, I was stoked about it at the time, even though like the previous year in honors was probably one of the worst years of my life. Man, that year was scary and I really hated every second of being a journalist. And so despite all the warning that I had, because I never listen the first time I hear advice or the first time I go through something, I need to learn the lesson multiple times. But I ended up doing this internship for 4 weeks before I very quickly resigned and ended up unemployed again. But despite the luck of landing such a cool internship and pretty much having my path set, I mean, if I'd have just stayed at this job and continued and done what I was supposed to do, I would have had a cushy job. I would have been, you know, on the road to what we would call success, at least in your 20s, right? I would have had the good job. I would have been able to have afforded the nice house, the cars, maybe even got a serious girlfriend, maybe even started thinking about kids at this stage, right? But none of that happened, and I'm low-key glad none of that has happened. But about 3 weeks into that internship, I just had an absolute meltdown, and I realized that journalism, at least in this regard, was just not for me. And so within 3 weeks of landing this amazing internship, and like I said, no crit to the people there, they were all amazing if they ever somehow see this video. You know, within 3 weeks of having my life pretty much on track for the future, I resigned from this cushy internship job in order to be unemployed again. And boy, oh boy, was I fucking scared, bro. I was terrified. And more than that, I was really disappointed in myself. I just felt like I was all the way back at square one and I just didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And there I was, you know, 25 years old, no job, no studies, no girlfriend, no finances. I was overweight, really overweight. I was drinking way too often. My life was just shambles, right? It was just a shit show. And like I said, I was in a pretty bad place at that stage. And now most of you are waiting for the grand reveal, right? I'm 27 now. I'm a multi-millionaire, got goals everywhere throwing themselves at me. I'm never depressed another day in my life, right? You're waiting for that big grand reveal. But I'm not a multi-billionaire. I am not at the height of my success by any means just yet, right? I'm still hitting the gym, trying to get down to that real good physique that I want.
I lift things up and put them down.
Excuse me?
But before you click off this video, hear me out, because even though I am not a multi-billionaire and I do not have my entire life figured out, I can tell you one thing with absolute certainty. And that is the fact that I have never, ever, bro, I've never been happier, right? I am the happiest I've ever been. I'm the most content. I am the most unbothered by the opinions of others. And I finally feel as though I am exactly where I need to be. I have a vision for the future. I have goals that I really do believe I can achieve. And I've come to the conclusion, or I've come to the realization that even though these goals may never come true, I'm okay with that. Simply because I'm finally living life according to my own values and my own standards of what success really looks like to me. I feel like I could really help you today, bro. And so, without further ado, there are 4 pieces of advice that I want to give you today that will hopefully help you find some direction and some purpose during your quarter life, midlife, end of life crisis. My first bit of advice to you is to simply focus on your core gifts and strengths, your talents, right? And not so much on your interests, at least at the start. I believe that there's a big mistake that commonly gets shared in the self-improvement community, and that is the advice that if you follow your passion, you will reach your dreams, right? They say follow your passion, follow your heart, follow your dreams. But this is only really half good advice. Because here's the thing, bro. You could be passionate as fuck about Shrek, right? You could love Shrek with all your heart, right? Shrek is love, Shrek is life. If you know that reference, you're a sick motherfucker. But even if you're passionate about Shrek, right? Nobody's going to hire you to look after their swamp. But instead of focusing on just what you like, right? Rather ask yourself this question, or these questions. What am I exceptionally good at? And if I really worked at this skill or this talent, what could I become world class at? Various studies, and there's so many out there, you could find them everywhere, but various studies on self-efficacy theory have demonstrated time and time again that the more competent a person is at their work, the higher job satisfaction they experience. In basic caveman terms, better you are at something, the more you probably are going to enjoy that something. I mean, who doesn't like being praised for their inherent strengths and talents? And the truth is that the world really only rewards the top 1% in any given field. All the money, all the success, all the fame goes to the upper echelon of that talent group, right? The guy who is the best of the best at something. Who is the second fastest runner in the world? Unless you're like a track super fan, I bet you can't think about it off the top of your head. But as soon as I say number 1, you're like, yo bro, Usain Bolt, easy. You'd rather spend your time building up the things that you are so good at that it's just going to require that much work instead of that much work in order to get really good at. So as simple as it sounds, stop wasting your time building up your weaknesses. Focus on your strengths, and your chance of being the 1% is that much higher. That brings us to step number 2, and this may be the most important step in this entire video, so listen up. Stop giving a fuck about what other people think or say about you or your dreams or your career path. People usually go into career paths and jobs and whatever it is simply because they are trying to impress other people, or that they were told from a young age that that is the career path to take, whether that was for money, status, fame, or just so that daddy will tell me he loves me finally. Please tell me you love me, daddy. I'm just trying to make you proud.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Again, studies have proven over and over and over that all the typical things that we think will make us happy, like money, status, fame, do not make us as happy as we think they are going to make us. It's common knowledge at this stage, but everybody chooses not to listen to the advice. They still go for the fancy car, the big house, the big mansion, but for what? So that mommy and daddy and all your little friends that don't even care that much about you can look at you and say,
Ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
wow, I want to be like Johnny one day. Like, who the fuck gives a damn what they want to be like? As horrible as that sounds. But people go for all these superficial things because A, they think it'll make them happy, but B, they think it'll impress and get the validation of other people. But even with all the validation and respect and love in the world, if they are not doing something that they find inherently valuable, and if you are not doing something that you find worthwhile, you will always be miserable. That's just the fact of life. If you don't believe me, check out the Science of Wellbeing course. It's a free course that is given by Yale. It'll explain everything much better than I ever could. It's brilliant. So I'll try to remember to link it down below, but check that course out and it'll change your life. To actually help you practically with this problem, you simply have to ask yourself one question. And that question is, if money and status weren't an issue, what would I want to do with my life? And if that's too big, just narrow it down and ask yourself, if money and status weren't an issue, what would I be doing today and every day from this moment onwards? And I think you'll get an answer pretty quickly. And that brings us to step number 3, which is simply to decide what is the biggest problem, according to me, right? What is the biggest problem that the world is facing right now? And if I could help, how could I help solve that problem? And let's get real dark and real grim for a second, but I feel like this question is super, super helpful in just waking you the hell up and making you realize that your time here isn't unlimited. You're gonna die, unfortunately. We're all gonna die. And so with that pleasant thought in mind, right? The fact of your imminent death.
Rest in peace.
You kind of come to the realization, the logical conclusion that if my time is limited, I better be making sure that that time is spent on doing something that not only I find enjoyable, but some problem that I find meaningful. Because at the end of the day, when you look back on your life, I think a big part of your happiness will be just realizing that, this was the biggest problem I felt I could solve. And so I did everything in my power to try to solve or even just help that problem. In simpler words, you need to spend your valuable and limited time doing things that are meaningful to you, things that bring you joy and things that give you a whole lot of purpose. A great example of this, love him or hate him, is Elon Musk, right? In a very famous interview, when asked about why he spends so much time, sleeping on the factory floor at Tesla and then going to SpaceX and spending the weekend there. And honestly, have you seen this guy in the sun? Like, there was pictures of him that I'll bring up now, but man doesn't see the sun, bro. He is working his ass off, like, respect. But you think to yourself, like, even with all the money and the fame and the cars, as we've discussed, aren't the secret to happiness, why the hell is he doing all of this stuff? And when asked about this in an interview, he answered that he felt as though interstellar travel and expansion was the world's current and most pressing issue to be solved. And he came to the conclusion that the grandest purpose for his life was to use his intelligence and his God-given gift for science and technology in order to help the human race expand and hopefully survive our limited time on this planet. And honestly, you need to do the same, bro. You need to decide, if my life had any meaning and if I could do anything with my life, what would I choose to be a part of? What greater kind of purpose would I want to be involved in and make a change in? Because if you are working towards solving a problem that you truly believe matters on a fundamental level, then naturally everything you do every single day will matter. It's as simple as that. And my final tip for you today, and as controversial as it may sound, hear me out, but step 4 is to start a business and work part-time. Do not work the 9 to 5 if you can avoid avoiding it for a little while. This is assuming you don't really have a lot of responsibilities, you don't have kids, you don't have a wife. I mean, even if you do and you're able to still do it on the side, by all means, go for it. But this advice is especially for the younger people watching this video that are really low in responsibilities. And if they were to fuck everything up, they could pretty much start again at ground zero tomorrow and still make a life for themselves. So here's your advice and here's your motivation today. Start a damn business and work part-time in order to fund and give yourself the gap and the free time to make that business successful. This honestly was a game changer for me. By successfully solving a problem at scale, which yes, is not the easiest thing to do, I'm still trying to figure it out, but if you can somehow solve a problem that people have at scale through the internet to thousands and millions of people, you will finally have the chance to be not only financially free, but you could make a hell of a lot of money and be truly wealthy. Because let's be honest, climbing the career ladder, as safe as that sounds to everybody, is definitely not the only way and is not actually the ideal way to make a whole lot of money, because you are simply being limited by your job description and the salary your boss is willing to pay you. But if you are your own boss, sky's the limit, baby. You can make as much money as you possibly can work for. And yes, I know, before you go and dislike the video and complain that not everybody can be an entrepreneur.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
Heck, I'm not even a successful entrepreneur. I'm still building up my business. So who am I to give you this advice? You can hate on me, you can say what you want, but I'm giving you this advice because it's honestly something I wish I had heard sooner, and it's something I wish I had considered sooner. So if you've been thinking about starting a business, turning your passion project into some financially viable business solution, here's your motivation, bro. Go for it.
Just do it.
Especially when you are young, especially when you don't have kids and a mortgage to pay and a wife to feed. Bro, what do you have to lose? At least you won't be that old man, 85 years old, 90 years old, on his deathbed, saying to himself, damn, bro, if only I had gone for the dream that I knew was real in my own heart. Because that old man and that old woman will always have regrets about what could have been. Whereas at least you had the balls to go for what you truly felt was your dream. and I respect you for that. I like to think about life as a video game, right? If you were given a copy of Grand Theft Auto or some open world, character RPG video game, and the person said, bro, you got to give this game back in 1 week from now, right? Would you spend that week playing the game safe, driving around in your little regular car, never looking at the beautiful places in the game, just kind of staying in the same area the whole game, staying in the same place, the same house, talking to the same safe people? Or would you spend that week going crazy, like traveling the world, meeting new and vibrant people, trying and following the path of every little skill and interest and talent that you had? Obviously, you'd pick the second option, right? What makes life any different from a video game? You're going to have to give it back eventually. This life, just like the game, may not be a week long, but it's definitely going to end. So what are you doing wasting your time playing it safe? Driving around in the same car, the same people, the same house, the same wife. I'm joking. Don't cheat on your girlfriends, lads. I'm just making a joke. But why play it safe when you have this big, beautiful game of life that you only get to play once? Why waste that? To sum up the whole mindset behind this video today, I'd like to leave you with a quote, one of my favorite quotes by a really funny guy by the name of Bill Burr. And he once famously said, realize that sleeping on a futon when you're 30 is not really the worst thing. You know what's worse? Sleeping in a king-sized bed next to a wife that you're not really in love with. But for some reason, you got married, you had a couple kids, and you got a job that you fucking hate. Okay, he didn't swear in the quote, but I'm just being dramatic because it's me. Sorry. You'll be laying there in that king-sized bed, fantasizing about sleeping on a futon, sleeping on a couch, because there's no risk when you go after a dream, but there is a tremendous amount of risk to playing it safe.